Pwede mag-get.
No, sir. Hindi ko po
Ay,
sinasabing
tinatanong ko nga, who are those? Para ma-check namin.
Sige, sir. Can we
Because
submit the names
we are
of the
being
members
paid.
of our NAPIC, Mr. Chair?
With the taxpayers' money. Tapos piliin mo yung private, then he cannot attend this hearing. Dahil privado siya.
Sir, as to the names and list of the members of the committee, we will submit po to the committee po yung pangalan at least.
Okay, oo. Kasi napaka-critical yung, before, very critical yung adverse effect after immunization being handled by the private sector. Congressman Acop.
That is precisely the reason why I asked for the presence of that head. Simply because if we recall, in the last hearing, the FDA was not able to come up with a causality report. And the reason given was that it was not under their jurisdiction. It was under the jurisdiction of NAA, FIC. Paano natin may determine yung causality ng excess death if the guy who is supposed to answer the questions here is not present? That is why I'm looking for him dahil yun ang naging problema natin nung last hearing. The FDA was not able to answer questions on causality.
So I think being head of the, that,
Siya ang tinuro
Yes.
ng FDA na siya makaka-explain eh.
so we'll be, issuing a show cause order to this personality for her to appear on the next hearing. Or motion muna kayo.
Chairman.
Motion tayo ng heavy
Chairman,
working.
actually, I understand the situation of that doctor because she's a private doctor. But of course, she should be present in this hearing for us to be enlightened with regards to issues being raised by this committee. Now, pwede namang i-refund talaga yan, Mr. Chairman. Under our rules, pag privado, pwedeng i-refund. No, that's why pumunta siya. Then, refund din, Mr. Chairman, hindi siguro si Ocos, just an invitation, and again, I will explain to her na pwedeng i-refund.
Okay.
But, Mr. Chairman, we should also invite all those members, especially yung working in government, or members of that EFIC.
Okay,
So, Mr. Chairman,
the COMSEC is hereby directed to invite those personalities, including the members of the NAFIC. Okay, go ahead, Congressman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Attorney, you were in the World Health Assembly.
Yes, Your Honor.
What was the position of the Philippine government vis-a-vis the Philippine pandemic, the pandemic treaty?
Insofar as our position po, we base our positions on our experiences during the pandemic.
I'm not asking for the basis of your answer. I'm asking what was the stand of the government?
Okay. We follow the commitment of our president with regard to the pandemic agreement.
The commitment of your?
Of the president during the UN General Assembly that we are committed to come up with a pandemic agreement in line with global solidarity so that we will be prepared for the next pandemic, and if ever so, we will be able to prevent the next pandemic.
It was the Secretary of the DOH who stated our position. Tama po ba?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes. And I would like to quote yung sinabi ng inyong boss sa kuan na yun, sa assembly na yun. We advocate support for the pandemic agreement that is balanced, operationalizes equity, recognizes our common resolve to change the status quo, and address vulnerabilities. We laud esteemed representatives who tirelessly negotiated a legally binding agreement that will save millions of lives in future pandemics. Thank you very much. Quote, unquote. Yun po yung statement ng ating Secretary of DOH na nag-represent po sa bansa natin. Tama po ba?
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, what is now the status of that pandemic agreement? Is it now in effect?
No, Your Honor, it's still ongoing negotiation because the pandemic agreement did not reach its consensus during the WHA. Hence, we were provided an extension period to negotiate to find consensus among 194 member states.
May I ask now, if you can guarantee to us, members present this afternoon, if the pandemic agreement will not impinge in any way insofar as our sovereignty and rights as a people are concerned?
Yes, Your Honor, we can assure that because it has been a constant position of the Philippines to protect its sovereignty as a nation.
Attorney, that is of record, ah?
Yes, Your
Pwede
Honor.
kitang singilin sa susunod kung hindi.
It's also on record during our negotiations, Your Honor, if it will appease the committee.
Yeah. Now, will this agreement pass through the Senate?
Yes, Your Honor, definitely it will.
It will. Thank you. Now, may I ask, what is now the status of the IHR? Because these are two different things. Tama po?
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, what is the status of the IHR?
Insofar as the World Health Assembly, it was already adopted, but insofar as the Philippines is, we are still awaiting for its possible implementation because we are given the 10-month period whether we accept, we reject, or we reserve the international health regulations as amended and adopted during the WHA 77.
When is the deadline of that?
10 months. What's the 10 months? End of April of next 2025.
2025. And we have also a team from the Philippines which will study
Yes, Your Honor.
the provisions of this IHR.
Yes, Your Honor.
May I ask again, would these amendments to the IHR impinge on our sovereignty and our individual rights?
No, Your Honor. One of the principles is actually lodged on the sovereignty of nations as well. And I can also vouch that all member states are also, the state parties in the international health regulations are also on the common ground with regard to the protection of its sovereignties.
Yeah. I have read the opinions of other countries not conforming with the amendments of the IHR. Does our country have any non-conforming opinion insofar as the IHR are concerned?
As of now, we're still studying the package, whether we are able to implement, because we are seeing whether there will be possibility of changes in policies that we cannot meet within the period required of the 10-month period. So we rest assured we're studying. Hence, at this point, the Philippines has not yet implemented the package of the 77 WHA of the IHR amendment.
I'm worried about this, attorney, simply because in the previous amendments to this IHR, the Congress was not consulted, and it was admitted in the last hearing. So, kung kayo lang po ang magde-decide, samantalang yung ibang bansa ay yung kanilang mga matataas na tao, mga membro ng Congress nila ang nagsasabi na ayaw nila na sumali dyan o kaya ayaw nila yung mga provisions sa IHR because some of the provisions thereat impinge on their sovereignty and individual rights. Kaya ako po sinisiguro po sa inyo na baka kayo ay makalimutan nyo na dapat protektahan nyo rin yun. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yan, as a matter of fact, Congressman.Acop, yun yung ating pinagtatalunan dati, di ba? Prior to December 1. And they keep on telling us that, hindi, may period pa ng pag-meeting, may series of meeting pa. And then suddenly, noong May 27 to June 1, IHR amendments were ratified. So ngayon, ibang ibang usapan yun eh. Kaya hindi tayo na-inform talaga about that IHR amendment. But basically, what we know right now is pinaikli nila yung amendment and the ratification in accordance with the rule that will be followed by that pandemic treaty that being negotiated by the DOH right now. Yan ang ninegotiate nyo na yung pandemic eh. Pag yan ang negotiation, so ira-ratify na yan after, i-implement na yan after a year.
Meron po
madali na.
bang nagsabi sa inyo o naniniwala kayo that Congress should be informed on that by the DOH, you being an agency of the government and the Congress is the one giving the budget to you?
Your Honor, if with regard to the international health regulations, just to be precise with my answer, with the international health regulations,
Yes.
yes, in our for us, the international health regulations following Article 21 of the WHO Constitution are actually sets of standards that are in such case that when we adopted them, they are we considered them, and as with guidance with our with the previous implementation of the IHR, they were considered as executive agreements. Hence, we, in our mind, it's something that's within the executive branch policy. But nonetheless, with the new sets of amendments, that's the reason why we are studying them, whether there's really a need for not just it's not merely something that we can just implement as it is, or if it will really entail the participation of the Congress. So that's one part of our prudence with regard to the new sets of amendment packages.
Attorney, I'm not concerned about what they're saying, but what I'm concerned about is your duty to inform the Congress about that. Palagay ko, that would now go to the Oversight Committee so that we'll be able to really, establish. Kinakailangan ba na i-inform ng DOH ang Congress natin on this issue of the international
Agreement. Treaty.
health regulations agreement. I think that it would be up to you initiating that procedure. Anyway,
Okay.
Chair,
Yeah.
it's now 6.
Yes,
it's now 5.
hanggang 6 lang po talaga tayo dito. And
One
extended
last
na po
lang,
tayo.
Chairman.
But before,
One last point.
I just wanted, sige, okay, go ahead.
Anyway, Chairman, Attorney, you mentioned about the working group now. You mentioned about the working group with regards to the ISR.
Yes po. They have ceased already to exist due to the finalization of the amendment package. So the working group is in charge of the amendment package for the international health regulations.
Yeah. So, sino-sino yung mga members dito? Are you a member of that working group?
I have a representative from legal. Mainly the members are coming from the focal point of our the IHR, which is the epidemiology, the Bureau of
Who chairs that working group?
if with your indulgence, may
Anyway,
I...
Mr. Chairman, we might invite the chairman of that working group in the next hearing so that the Congress will be updated with regards to the developments of that.
Yes.
Yeah, so working group. Yung kahit chairman lang po. Next hearing. Thank you, Chairman. And, Chairman, I'd just like to reiterate yung statement ni Chairman Benebanti. That's part of our oversight function because that is an international agreement. So, Congress should be updated and Congress should intervene on such agreement, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
So, siguro, anybody from the group to want to say something? Pasensya na po talaga kayo, no? Kasi na-delay tayo ng almost 2 hours. Supposedly, allotted dito mga 2.5 hours eh. But unfortunately, we have to leave these premises, no? Before 6. So, briefly sana, para makapagano
Yes,
lang. Yung mga group ng mga nagkaroon ng sinasabing alleged victims. Sige, go ahead.
Good afternoon to the honorable members of the committee. I'm Attorney Bello for CDCPH Lunas, Pilipinas. As a tax-paying citizen, I think I would like to raise 2 concerns especially Honorable Abante. From a legal perspective, I'm quite bothered that my question is, do we have room to determine our own position when the Secretary of Health has already made a commitment to support the pandemic agreement, when we don't even know yet what it contains? So, that may have been a premature commitment. It's like signing a blank
Yeah.
check. And so,
You
if,
have the right to be heard. You have the right to be heard.
So that's one of our concerns. If there is already a commitment by the highest representative of our nation for these matters, how much leeway does our negotiating panel have in let's say digressing from what is recommended by the other, let's say, more powerful nations?
Yeah, that's the reason why we will be inviting Secretary
Yes.
Herbosa on this issue, no? Regarding this statement din ni Congressman Acop, which he quoted on saying that it was mentioned by Secretary Herbosa. Congressman Acop.
Panyera, that is precisely the reason why I asked DOH whether the pandemic treaty, which was brought out in the World Health Assembly, would pass the Senate. Because all treaties entered into by our country, as you know, should pass the Senate. And
Yes,
I
sir.
think this is where we can scrutinize the provisions of that pandemic treaty.
Yes, sir. But that leads me to my second question, sir. Because even with the assurance of the approval of the Senate of the pandemic treaty, we'd like to go back to the very basic experience in the Philippines. RA 11525, which was a very clear law, where Section 12 stated that the vaccine card would not be necessary for transactions in government, for employment, and all those things. Even that, so simple, so clear, was not followed by the executive department. That was a product of your work, sir.
Yeah.
That was your policy. That was a policy of
That
Congress.
was not followed by the
And
executive.
it was not followed by the executive.
Yeah.
So what is our assurance if that local law, which was so clear, even a grade 5 student who knows English could understand it, what is our assurance that something that is ratified by the Senate but is binding on the international community will,
But during the time, attorney, we were all caught unaware.
Yeah.
We were all caught in a fear factor situation because lahat tayo during that time, this is a novel virus. And that's the reason why whatever resolution or whatever decision of the IATF we swallowed. But this time, there are people like Congressman Acop, Congressman Paduano, Congressman Abante, myself, Congressman Romulo, and the others who are now on guard of this policy that will be drafted and crafted by the executive department. We will see to it that we will be able to see the protocol that will be followed on the next pandemic.
Yes.
Because
Yes,
they are warning us.
Yes, sir, but
WHO is already
Yes, sir,
warning us.
but-
Everybody is warning us. But we have to see that the right health protocol that will be followed by our country will be based on our experience on the last pandemic.
Yeah, attorney, that's why I mentioned that because we have an oversight function here. So I'd like to make a motion that we again call the DOH in the oversight committee on this,
Yes.
Mr. Chair. I make that motion right now.
Let me give my point of view, Attorney, to your question. Kasi galing ako sa militar at saka uniform service. You know, we accept the fact that it was an emergency situation. Tama po ba? Or you do not accept it?
yes, sir.
You accept it. And in an emergency situation, there has to be a decision. Otherwise, the outcome will be more disastrous. Would you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Yes. And therefore, government has to act. Tama po? Even if there was a provision of law that says so, pag emergency, that law can be waived. Why? Because of the emergency situation. Government has to decide. Kasi kami, na naka-uniforme, pag nandun na kami sa battlefield, pag hindi kami nag-decide, mas malaki yung damage na nangyayari sa amin eh. That is why we say that a wrong decision is better than no decision at all. That
Yes,
was
but
where government was during that situation.
Pwede pa tayo extend.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I just received a text that we can still extend like another 30 minutes. So go ahead, Congressman. Can we allow other members of the resource speakers to speak also? Please identify yourself and you are recognized.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, and sa lahat po sa atin dito. I think what Attorney Bello was saying was that kung yung batas nga natin na RA 11525 na napakadaling maintindihan ng mga lehitimong mamamayang Pilipino ay hindi nga ginalang nitong ating mga ahensya ng gobyerno, how much more pa po kung yung magle-level up na siya into an international law. And Mr. Chair, bilang isang pastor at nagmula po sa Davao, nakabahagi po kami ng Lunas, Pilipinas, ang amin pong ipinaparating ay, maaari ho ba na maging kabahagi ang hanay namin sa Lunas, Pilipinas sa gagawing technical working group? Para nang sa gayon po, mag-meet halfway po tayo na hindi yung nabubulaga tayong lahat, kagaya po ng sinasabi natin, naririnig natin sa ating mga congressmen na nagsasalita kanina, aminado tayo na there was an emergency na kinailangan gampanan ng ating mga halal sa bayan. Subalit, hindi nangangahulugan yon na isang option lang ang ating gagawin. Isa lang ang ating pakikinggan. Kagaya na lamang po sa hanay namin, nung minandatoryo po, yung minandatoryo ninyo, yung bakunahan, lalong-lalo na po yung pagpapatupad ng IATF, nakasaad naman po sa Section 12 ng RA 11525 na hindi po siya mandatoryo. Subalit, napilitan ho ang maraming kababayan natin na sumunod dahil sa kagustuhang makapaghanap buhay, kagustuhang may mga emergency na kailangan mapuntahan. So, I think that was where our good lawyer, Attorney Bello, was coming from. Yun lang po. Thank you po, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair, may I? Thank you. Alam po ninyo, ang asawa ko po'y namatay dahil sa sa pandemic. So alam ko yung suffering, mga nilalagay nyo dyan ng mga litrato. She died during the pandemic because of COVID. And she did not receive any vaccine kasi ayaw pa niya nung una eh. So she had a choice. Di ba? Kasi meron na yung Chinese vaccine noon eh. Sinovac. She did not avail of it because she wanted na yung gawa sa other countries other than China ang magamit niya. So, yung sinasabi po ninyo, ako nga pabor doon sa ginagawa ng gobyerno noon eh. Why? Kasi maganda lang tayo magsalita ngayon yung diferensya because we were not there. Hindi tayo ang decision maker nung panahon na yon. Pero if you were in the shoes of government, would you have done otherwise, Pastora? Would you have done otherwise?
Mr. Chair, what I am saying is, hindi kami tutol na nanindigan o gumawa kayo ng hakbang para po papasukin ang bakuna dito sa ating bayan. What we are trying to say was that kung yung simpleng pong batas na kayang maunawaan ng mga elementary grades natin ng mga kabataan sa Pilipinas na hindi kayang masubstantiate na maipatupad ng maayos, how much more po kung papasok tayo dun sa isang panibagong international law na kagaya po ng sinasabi ng mahal nating attorney na nagmula sa DOH, binibigyan niya tayo ng assurance na talagang sisiguraduhin daw nila na yung sobereintiya natin hindi maisasaalang-alang. Subalit, ang tanong natin, hindi pa nga tapos yung technical working group ninyo, nagsasabi na kayo na ipapasa nyo sa Senado. Pangalawa, may nauna ng statement ang ating Secretary ng Department of Health na they are 100% in support. So parang saan tayo papasok dun kung hindi pa pala tapos pero meron ng commitment? That's all, Mr. Chair.
Mali po yata yung intindi nyo, Pastora. Hindi naman po nila sinabi na ipapasa doon sa Senado. Ang sinasabi po lang namin ay lahat ng tratado na pipirmahan ng ating bansa dadaan at dadaan sa scrutiny ng Senado because that is what the law says. Number two, the Secretary of Health, I'm not defending him. The Secretary of Health did not say 100% na support. May mga condition nga siya eh. Kaya nga binasa ko eh. There are conditions that he stated for his country's support to the pandemic treaty. That treaty is supposed to be balanced. It will operationalize equity. So may mga conditional. Kaya hindi 100%, Pastora. You better read that.
I stand corrected, Mr. Chair, but that's what I understand during the exchange of conversation.
Of the Secretary of DOH during the World Health Assembly. Binasa ko, I quoted it. I have a video of that also.
Yes, correct. Thank you so much. I saw it. You showed it to me. Okay. Dr. Landrito. Sige, go ahead.
Yes, I would like to address this to Honorable Congressman Acop. As far as you were saying we were in an emergency, right? But CDCPH,
There was an official declaration of an emergency situation in
Yes.
our country.
yes, as early as August 2020, CDCPH has been asking for an audience with the OH because we were proposing for a different treatment protocol for prevention and treatment. They never gave us. They gave us the chance. We were in a Zoom meeting with Dr. Duque in June 15, 2021. So many months have passed. But our experience from that time on, that span of time, we were able to save hundreds of thousands of lives using our protocol. And I would say it is highly probable and possible that your wife could still be alive today if she received the treatment that we were proposing. Personally, I was spearheading the distribution of ivermectin, which was proven
Lord,
to be...
let me cut you there.
Yes.
My wife had a choice. I'm telling you that. Katabi ko siya sa pagtulog eh. I know better my wife than you do.
Yes.
Di ba?
Yes,
She had a choice. Pwede siyang magpapakuna. Pero she chose differently. So huwag nyo nang sisihin siya.
I'm not blaming her. I'm blaming what I'm pertaining to was the treatment, not the vaccine. We were proposing, and they were demonizing our proposal. 5 times they gave advisories, the DOH, I mean, that ivermectin was not good, was not to be used by the doctors. When in fact those who used it anyway.
I read that.
Yeah.
I read all
We see it.
the debates about your protocol. I read that also.
The truth is, DOH never heard it. It's fortunate that you heard it, but they never heard. They gave us a chance only on June 15. And you know what they said after we proposed it? Yes, we will do it, of course. But we will have to wait for the clinical trial. And they did the clinical trial January 2022. And only just in incipient stage, just 2 weeks, they stopped the trial. So,
Doctor,
nothing
I
happened.
cannot answer you because I was not a member of the IATF. Maybe we should wait for the presence of Dr. Duque, who was then the Secretary of the Department of Health and a member of the IATF.
So what I'm saying, sir, here is we could have made a big difference. You were saying, were you doing what were you doing during the pandemic? This is what we've been doing, and that is what we have accomplished.
Doctor, kasi ako, hindsight is the perfect science. I think you know what I mean.
Okay, thank you so much. Sige, Sally. Then I will be asking yung sa Bureau of Quarantine. Kasi may question sa iyo si Congressman Acop eh. I will be asking you. Okay.
Thank
Sally
you.
Clark.
Yeah, I would just like to put on record that in terms of adverse reaction reporting systems, there are known underreporting factors.